Hi, I hope you're all doing really well. So the last week has been a very eventful week for us. So the last thing you would have seen would have been the Innsbruck vlog, and the last thing in that was the two of us going to a burger restaurant called Ludwig. So things started to change dramatically after that restaurant visit. So I'll just give you a quick update on what happened. Basically, we were sitting there eating in the restaurant, and all of a sudden I started to feel really unwell, and I was convinced that I maybe had food poisoning or some sort of tummy bug or something like that, but I was feeling really ill, and I only managed like 2 or 3 bites of my meal, and then we kind of had to rush back to the hotel, and I struggled to walk back to the room and stuff like that. Got into bed, and just progressively throughout the night I was just feeling worse and worse and worse, and I was having these awful tummy cramps, and like I was still convinced that it was just like a tummy bug or something. And then it was only after a few hours that I kind of clocked that they were coming at regular intervals. So then I realized that they were actually contractions. So I woke Eric up. I mean, Eric had been kind of awake because I was feeling so rubbish anyway, but I got him to look stuff up on his phone, so he was like googling things and having a look, and we thought maybe there were Braxton Hicks contractions, which are like the fake practice contractions that you get in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. And then we were doing some research on the difference between the Braxton Hicks and like normal contractions, and while Eric was doing all of this on his phone, I was just getting progressively worse and worse and worse, and they were coming closer together and getting more painful, and it was just a nightmare. And then at about, I think it was about 4 in the morning, Eric was like, okay, I think these are the real thing, I think we need to go into hospital, and even if they're not, it's better to just go and find out for sure and check and just be sure. Luckily the hospital was only like 5 minutes around the corner, so we like quickly chucked on some clothes and went there, and I was having like contractions on the way, and I was like screaming in the street and stuff. It was quite bad. So I got to the hospital and they admitted me straight away, and they did a few tests and things like that, and they said it was definitely real labour that I was going into, not like fake labour or Braxton Hicks or anything like that. So that was a real shock for me, because I was convinced that they were going to say, oh, they're just, you know, the fake contractions, everyone gets them, just, you know, we'll give you some painkillers and you can go home or something. So I was really shocked. I just wasn't expecting it at all. And obviously when all of this was happening, I was only 30 weeks pregnant, so normal full term. Your due date is usually at the 40-week mark, so it was 10 weeks early. So obviously the baby would still be very small, and would, you know, if it was born then, he would struggle to, I don't know, do a lot of things, I guess. So it was really important that we tried to make sure that he didn't come. So they gave me some like some really strong drugs that basically to try and stop the labour, and I was very lucky because my body responded really well to them and they worked really well. But they said, you know, sometimes they work really well, and sometimes like they only work for a few days, sometimes they work for a few weeks. You just kind of never know how long you're going to get out of them. So they put me on those straight away, and they also gave me these steroid injections to mature the baby's lungs, so that if he was to be born, his lungs would be a bit more ready to breathe. And that was really scary, because the idea of having a baby whose lungs were not yet ready to breathe was obviously really terrifying, and you know, you never know what's going to happen. So I had to have those 2 injections over the course of like 48 hours. So I had those. I was in hospital on the labour suppressing drugs for about 4 days altogether. And like as time went on, my contractions got weaker and further apart, and I started to kind of come out of like labour, I guess, or whatever it's called. And then after about 4 days, they decided to take me off the drugs to see how I got on, to see whether I went straight back in or didn't. And luckily when they took me off them, I didn't. So that was really, really positive. And then I was allowed to go home. So obviously we had to then drive back all the way to Munich, which was a 2-hour drive, which was a little bit scary because this whole time we were in Innsbruck hospital, so we weren't even at home. Eric had to like pay for extra nights at the hotel, and everything was just kind of all over the place. But anyway, we're back home now. We've been back home for a few days, but I've only just felt like, you know, I've had some energy because the whole kind of 4 nights that I was in hospital, I slept probably about 3 or 4 hours the entire time. And what else? So got home, contractions were still, you know, very far apart. I'm still having them, but only like 1 or 2 a day, which is really good. But I am on like permanent bed rest till the baby comes now, so I'm only really allowed to get up and walk around to like go to the loo and have a shower and stuff. So that's a little bit frustrating, but obviously, you know, if it's the best thing for the baby, then, you know, of course it's the most important thing really. So yeah, just trying to hold him in a bit longer, I guess. So I've been given some emergency medication, so if I was to start to go into labour again, then I have to take that and head straight to the hospital, because obviously I'm 31 weeks today, so it's still very early, and they do think that the baby will come quite early, unfortunately, but the new kind of aim to try and get to is 34 weeks, which will be the 1st of October. So I'll be really happy if we can get there, because that will mean that his like lungs are in a are well enough developed to kind of for him to be okay, and just like him retaining his body temperature, and there's things in his development really. He'll do a lot better if he can reach 34 weeks. So we're all just hoping that he'll get there basically, and every day that we get through is just like, yay, it's an extra day, you know, it feels like a victory. So we just have to keep positive and hope that he stays in there to cook a bit longer, really. So yeah, that's a little update for you on what's been happening. I hope I've covered everything. I think that was everything. Yeah, I think that's everything. So thank you for watching this, and I'll keep all of you guys updated as usual. Thank you for everyone who's shown so much support and everything like that. It really means the world to us. And we'll see you again in our next video. Bye!